All right, here we are with Quentin Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson, two great champions of the 70 millimeter format, saving film and all of that. And of course, this is Christmas Eve. The Hateful Eight is opening tomorrow, actually opening tonight in some
Yeah, like
locations.
the last show of the night.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
A little sneak.
Thursday sneak.
Yeah. In 70, in about 100 theaters around the country, which has been an amazing job by the Weinstein Company and Eric Lomas in particular to go out and find all these parts and projector parts and everything to be able to show it, because this is a digital world we're living in.
Oh no, it was funny. I mean, like Harvey Weinstein and Eric Loomis have. When they both have their funerals, all right, they have a really great speech coming from me, all right, during the eulogy. If they do nothing else for the rest of our lives together by pulling this off, the way they said they would way back when we made the deal to do the movie, it's really amazing. There was a little aspect of it where I didn't quite know exactly what I was asking. To do the 70 millimeter. I had an idea, but I didn't know how bad things had gotten. That really, if they were to really do it, there really only is, if you discount museums, maybe 11 or 12 venues out there to actually just plug in. Okay, plugged in, there you go. And I guess I should have known, because that's pretty much where Christopher Nolan played. And, he has all the Warner Brothers behind him. So if there was more venues, they would have played more venues. But the thing that was interesting about it, though, was, I thought we would, my initial thought was we'd play in 70 millimeter, and that would be that. And then we'd play in 35 millimeter, and that would be that. And then they would open up the DCPs. And then, whatever theaters can hold, both 70 and 35, great. What I didn't realize in putting all this together, but I learned to realize, one, how much of a lost cause 35 was, trying to push it forth as a projecting medium, which is very sad. But I didn't realize to the extent of what a lost cause it was. At the same token, I didn't realize to what an extent 70 millimeter would be a drawing point. That 70 millimeter would be an exciting aspect to this. That not just me and other film geeks, but just a lot of people have got excited about that very idea. And then maybe it actually might be 70 millimeter itself. To me, the one format that just, you can't even have an intelligent argument about it being bested. By any of the digital stuff. There's no intelligent argument to be had that puts digital, even in the greatest IMAX situation, in front of that. How that actually might be film's saving grace. It might be film's last stand. It might be film's last night in the arena and actually conquer. And we'll see what the deal is. All right, but that became very, very exciting as we put together 100 different venues in 44 different markets. I mean, it truly was a Herculean task.
It's amazing. And Paul, you of course did this with The Master, probably not on this scale. I think it was fewer theaters.
Yeah, no, we aimed much lower. We were kind of
no, but literally though. But I don't want to interrupt you just as you start talking. But literally, the thing is, part of the reason they knew how to start with mine is because Eric Loomis and Harvey started with Paul's. The groundwork was kind of late. They knew what they were facing more than I did, but because of Paul's movie.
Right. I mean, we sort of, the idea with The Master was, well, where can we show this? And it was places like the Arrow. It was places like revival places that were keeping 70 millimeter alive, that you knew you could walk in there and somebody would know how to run the gear and they could present it well. So we were kind of searching out those places exclusively. And I have to say, to Harvey and Eric's credit, is that once we did a few of those, kind of leading up to premiering the film eventually in Venice, the taste out there from people was obvious to them, and it was something that we could grow outside of just a specialized thing. That Harvey and Eric actually said, why don't we try and put a couple projectors in New York? Why don't we put a couple projectors or tune them up here in LA? So it grew that way, and that was amazing too, because I never for a second thought we'd have a legitimate 70 run. I thought it would be a specialized thing. So when we got a couple of those theaters hooked up or kind of retuned, it was also clear that people were coming out for that more than they were coming out for the 35 or the DCP. They were searching it out. It was one of those things. Because I can remember as a kid, I didn't really know what it was, I think, when I probably first saw 70 millimeter, like Empire Strikes Back. It was like, I don't know what that is, but I want to see it because they've made it appear as if I should. And really what it was going to be the best presentation, it was going to be the best sound. George Lucas had kind of brought that back, I think, for Empire Strikes Back because he wanted the soundtrack. So it kind of brought about this kind of new generation being aware of it. I was about 9 or 10. So I wasn't, really aware of it from the original format of 65 to 65. I was aware of it as a blow-up for sound, but I would be in the big theaters watching it and catching it that way and going, whatever this is, I want more of it. This feels amazing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is like, before there was THX sound, you'd go and see these prints, and if they were 35 millimeter, it'd be 4-track magnetic sound,
Right. Oh, yeah.
which was amazing. All right, and if you saw a 70 millimeter print, it would be 6-track magnetic sound. But he's right. Actually, the first, I think the first 70 prints that I saw were all shot on 35, blown up to 70.
Right.
You'd look in the newspaper and you see Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back or The Exorcist. Or even the Wild Bunch has a gorgeous 70 millimeter print floating around out there, which actually has the 16 millimeter stuff that got cut out of the initial theatrical run is in the 70 print, or Die Hard or something like that. But there'd be the box. You have the ad for the movie, and then you have all the theater locations, and then there'd be that box that would be shown in 70 millimeter, and they showed it like at the Avco. It would be shown in 70, or at the Village, it would be shown in 70. I think that actually the first, two 70 millimeter prints that I actually saw that were actually shot in 70 were the last two movies to have the Cinerama logo on them. They weren't shot in Cinerama. All right, they was just using the logo by that time. But it was a double feature, and it was Krakatoa, East of Java,
Yes.
on a double feature with Custer of the West.
Right.
And both movies, especially Custer of the West, all right, had that Cinerama, you are there kind of scenes. There's like a scene where Lawrence Turney is being chased by a bunch of Indians, and he hops on a log that's going down one of the log chutes for a logging camp, and it's like the camera is like on the log right behind the dude as it's going down. So there totally is like that roller coaster from This is Cinerama. You're right in the log with Lawrence Turney.
Right.
It's great. Well, you've revived the Cinerama logo at the
Yes, we
beginning
did.
of The Hateful Eight, which is great.
Yeah, I'm sure much to Panavision's chagrin. All right, because Panavision, this is a bit of a misnomer. The thing about it was, with Cinerama, they created this amazing format where 3 cameras, and they would show 3 simultaneous projectors. And that was, they did a bunch of travelogues, and then they did 2 features with that way. How the West was one, and the Wonderful World of Brothers Grimm. And that was ultimately lost to the world until a projectionist in Dayton, Ohio, spent over a decade putting together one print of How the West Was Won, and could actually refurbished it first in his house and then in a theater.
He had
to
Cinerama
actually
in his
show
house?
he had Cinerama in his house. I actually went to his house, and he showed me the opening reel in his garage of Grand Prix. All right, so to see the 70 millimeter opening reel of Grand Prix in a guy's garage with a fucking ping pong table right next to it was something else. All right, but the thing is though. He put all that back together, and then they actually just recently they show it every year or so at the Cinerama Dome because he figured it all out. He has the print. But the deal though was as big of a hit as How the West Was Won. The studios go, F that. We're not going through that kind of problems again. But by that point in time, the Cinerama logo was this cool thing. Yeah. Well, it turned out that Panavision had created something that was the closest equivalent to the 3-screen Cinerama by having Ultra Panavision 70, which was instead of 235, which is the way most scope is, it's 276. And what's even kind of cool about that one is which is like the widest frame available, for for any kind of Hollywood type of movie. And the way they ended up doing that, the way it works is you put an adapter on the projector lens, and that blows it out to those sides. It's pretty amazing looking. But movies that included that were definitely like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, Ice Station Zebra, Battle of the Bulge, 2001: A Space Odyssey had the Cinerama logo on it. And I think literally the last cartoon was the last one shot with Ultra Panavision, but the last two movies to have the Cinerama logo were Krakatoa East to Java, which, by the way, just for any geography buffs, Krakatoa is actually west of Java.
Yeah.
Right.
That movie got very criticized at the time. That may have ended Cinerama.
All right, exactly. But admittedly, all right, Krakatoa East of Java just trips off the tongue just a little bit more.
Yeah,
I'm understanding.
But
Or Bernard Kowalski.
this big screen experience that the Hateful Eight has, that the Master had, and some people would say, well, the Hateful Eight largely is set in 1 or 2 sets, so why shoot in 70? And the Master too, not necessarily in that kind of epic realm that we think of. Let me ask you, why was it 70 for you?
Well, you know, it just made me think of something though, like that the best special effect you can have is a great actor. Like Sam Jackson is a better special effect than any fucking special effect. You know what I mean? And
Than the balloon in Around the World in 80 Days.
Exactly right. Jennifer Jason Leigh is better, that beats a fucking spaceship any day. I mean, she just is a special effect of her own. So seeing this large format, and you're right, because it is sort of, I guess, somewhere along the line, it became you go outside and you shoot vistas, and there are plenty of vistas in Quentin's film, and there's a few in The Master, but by and large, you're right, they're kind of these interior films, and that's okay, because, I mean, when you see those performances, to me, I mean, when I see Quentin's film, and you see the staging that he's able to do in this claustrophobic room. I mean, it feels epic to me. It's pretty interior, but it's still epic when you've got someone occupying the far right of frame, and you don't know what's going on with them, and you've got somebody in the middle and somebody over here. And the way he staged it all seemed only possible in this format. That said, I could probably see it on a black and white TV and still love it, you know, but because I think it just works as a film. But my choice was, I can't even remember actually at the time. I think it was just messing around with those cameras and seeing something that really looked
Wasn't
unique.
it, because I heard from at different points, I think on Django we had a couple of your camera department worked with us for a little bit of time. Wasn't it one of those situations where you just got a little bit more and more pregnant? Yeah, but people hadn't talked about doing a 70 movie in a while. However, people would rent a 65mm camera for sequences.
For sequences, it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
You know, we started out doing some tests at Panavision, and they handed us those cameras, and we shot some stuff. And when you saw it, it looked very close to the VistaVision look, that kind of One-Eyed Jack's Vertigo. These kinds of films that were very evocative of the 50s, this very specific time in the 50s.
And that's when your movie takes place.
And that's when the movie takes place. So those images were just like calling out that time period so strongly that the funny thing was you were right, it was a little bit pregnant. We sort of backed into it. I don't think we went on the road thinking we're going to make a 70 film here. Just the more we looked at it, the more it looked right, the more we started using these cameras, the more we had to sort of reevaluate, okay, where are we spending the money on this film? I think we want to keep going with this. What are we going to cut out over here, or how are we going to make our budget work to do this? Because it was a little bit more expensive, you know, not by much, but it was.
But it had to be figured once you decided to go down that road.
Absolutely right. And yeah, it was just like once you were pregnant, you were pregnant. You were right. So you know, there was no going back.
You're sold on it. Well, I remember even in the 50s, the time your film was set, those great CinemaScope, widescreen, black and white movies that were based on plays, Hatful of Rain,
Oh, yeah.
and you know,
Sure.
Bigger Than Life, you know, the James Mason movie too, that were certainly
The Innocents is another great one. Remember
Yes,
that, Deborah
Innocents,
Cohen? Yeah.
fantastic. You know, and those were big widescreen things with smaller kind of stories.
You know, it's funny, but I was actually watching The Innocents the other day, and they do an amazing thing in that. Jack Clayton was the DP on that. Or was it the
He's the
director?
director.
The director, it was Freddie Francis who's the
Yeah,
DP. Is that it is this widescreen film, but there are sequences where all the edges fall off, and it's just sort of like this 1-3-3 box for some of it, and it's just he's just not lighting areas. But when he wants to, it just becomes larger. It's like the command of that frame in that film, or the ability to do stuff with a frame that you can get with what's Quentin's done is it gives you more latitude. It's kind of great that way.
Yeah, when you looked at Hateful Eight and saw that, what was your feeling on it?
Well, the funny thing is, I haven't seen it
He
yet.
hasn't, no, he's seen the movie, but he hasn't seen it in 70 millimeter.
Okay.
The thing about it was, I had
I
actually.
can guess.
Well, no, he's going to pay for a ticket tomorrow. All right. But the thing about it is, I actually had 4 friends because I'd had a few different screenings of 70 millimeter, and I go, look, I got to talk about the movie, and I don't want to stun you into liking it because of the bigness. I should be able to put it on a video cassette and cross tape it 4 different times and have you watch it through an aquarium, and if it's a good story, it's going to grab you. And so we just took away all the bells and whistles, and he just actually came down to the editing room with 3 of my friends, and we just watched it on the Avid. Because I just wanted to look. This is about the movie. Forget the show.
I think it's equivalent of, when somebody, you hear a lot about this, like when people make records, is that they'll make a tape of of a song and they'll take it to their car and they'll play it out there just to hear it in different ways. And I think that, I'll be curious how people respond to Quentin's film because, yeah, there's this magnificence of seeing it up there, but I think, like you said, you could tape it over and over again. That's the funny thing, what we're talking about here, is that if the engine of this thing isn't propelling it along, then...
Well, I got to say, even when, by the way, this is my theater. We're in my house right now. And, but when Bob Weinstein and Eric Loomis and David Glasser and the whole flying sack of maniacs that work at the Weinstein Company, when they came out to propose what they wanted, what they could do, i.e. with like a book of all these great, wonderful old-time theaters that still have the 70 that we can show that literally have been there like since the 1920s. And then in the theaters we refurbish. It was a really glorious experience. However, this is before we shot the movie. I wouldn't have been comfortable talking that much about exhibition that early in the stage if I wasn't really confident with the script. I was very, very confident with the script. I'm not saying the script is the greatest thing in the world, but I'm just saying I had confidence in the material. And it's different than, say, Django or Inglourious Bastards, because those were done as these kind of like wild, crazy novels that I adapt every day into a movie. And, whether or not I'm going to pull that off, I guess I've deserved the benefit of the doubt by this point in time. But it's a question. I have to pull it off. But I was really confident with this material, i.e., if we did it at a 99-seat theater off of Santa Monica Boulevard, that'd be a great night of theater. And if I did it on the London West End, that would be a great night of theater. If I shot it like Todd Haynes did on 16 millimeter in a 1:3:3 window box format, that would be a great night at the movies. Well, then let's do it in 70. But it was because of my confidence in the material that we could even talk about exhibition that soon in the process.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's bringing it to the forefront again. And, this generation that's being brought up of watching movies on their iPhones or different ways is being told there's something else. And maybe you don't remember it, but try it out and go to a movie theater.
Oh, absolutely. I do believe, look, I really, really, as conflicted as I am about the domination of digital projection, and part of my problem with it is the fact that I see no reason, us filmmakers were not brought into the equation when the theater owners and the studios decided that film would be gotten rid of completely and it would all be replaced by digital projection. We weren't brought into this equation. Right. And I see no reason why one had to be eradicated in favor of another. They could have existed harmoniously together. And hopefully that will happen at some point in time, like the way albums have come back. But having said that, we wouldn't be able to do what we've been able to do, in particularly with chains like Regal and chains like AMC that have really, really opened it up to us and have let us put in the projectors and change their masking and cut holes in walls where there were no holes in order to get the right depth of field, so the right throw for the projector. I mean, it's been really, really wonderful. But I think they see the excitement. Right. They see the excitement in not just renting a seat. They see the excitement in presentation. They see the excitement in going to the movies and having it be a big deal, especially during the holiday season.
Right. An event. I mean, this is also going back to the old days of the road show, what they call the road show, and what used to be reserved seat engagements. You're handing out programs, which I have every program from every movie I ever saw in that format. And I just got this one. Thank you very much. But it's
pretty good, huh?
Yeah, it's great. It's really good. It's even got that little Cinerama thing going on it too. But programs, an intermission, an overture, you know, all of that really did make movie going an event in the 60s and the 50s. And
well, I love the idea of an intermission. I love it in plays, and I love it when movies do it. And I think, especially since I'm such a storyteller, I really like taking the audience on telling them a story, and I love different storytelling techniques that you can use to, you know, delay an audience gratification or goose it to some degree or another. And you know, to me, I guess my favorite intermission of all time is 2001, where the seemingly almost storyless whole first act goes, and then a conflict is introduced the minute before the introduction. I mean, the intermission. The minute before the intermission kicks in.
Yeah.
Like you had no idea that there was even a story going to be building up.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess you had to think about that with Hateful Eight, where you were going to.
Well, there wasn't much to think about. I mean, it was pretty.
He knew where he knew just what he was
that
going to
Sam
do.
Jackson monologue just screams curtain. You know, when it's over.
I mean, that entrance music and all that too. I mean, I hate to sound like an old man too, but there is something about like that kind of hypnotizing thing that can happen. It's just like, just settle down, settle in your seat, forget about your fucking phone for a second. It's kind of this meditation that can happen. It's like, I am in it. That kind of, even if you were sitting in a theater and you get bombarded with a bunch of commercials and trailers, you're sort of thrown right into the movie. I mean, I prefer this kind of like setting the table, this thing that you haven't seen in a long time. It's I don't know. It seems opposite of what we're used to going to the movies now, and so I just can't wait to see people watch it and be there with it. You know?
But one of the things that I'm really proud about, and it's one of the reasons why it's so fun to sit next to this guy as we talk about this, is the idea that you know, we talk about some of the different, you know, you brought up how some people are like, wow, this is kind of weird that you would go so big with 70 millimeter in a drawing room mystery, you know, to almost some degree or another. You know, it takes place in a stagecoach and a barn and haberdashery. That's not even really a haberdashery. And I understand a bit the Scooby-Doo, all right, about it all right. But also at the same time, there is this aspect that if you think 70 millimeter is just for travelogues, or it's just to shoot the 7 wonders of the world, that's a really facile version of what 70 millimeter can do. I've always thought that the big scope formats, if used in this way, can actually offer up more intimate experiences. And in this case, you know, the close-ups bear that out. But also, you know, Minnie's haberdashery, where most of the story takes place, becomes Gettysburg in the course of the storytelling. And it does seem big and event-like. And there also is that aspect of, there's always two kind of plays going on in the case of Hateful Eight. There's the foreground play, with the actors that are in the foreground dealing with what they're dealing with. But then there's always the background play going on, whether it's Joe Gage by his table, or John and Daisy by the bar, or General Smithers by his little chair by the fireplace. Because it's a chess game, going on, and you're repositioning everybody, and everyone's kind of, the bishop is moving closer to kill the pawn, and the pawn is moving closer to kill the knight, and so you actually have to kind of know where everybody is in the course of the story at all times, unless I don't want you to. And that kind of foreground background play really, made that, I think a compelling thing to visually, without killing you, visually kind of keep your eye stimulated and keep you going on with what this battleground actually is. But like another thing, and it's what I mean in particular when it comes to the 70mm approach, when it comes to something like The Hateful Eight and The Master, is, I mean, when you look at, the movies that shot with the Ultra Panavision lenses. Look, I like Ben-Hur like the next person, in particular the chariot race sequence. But I mean, really, probably the only, two movies that I really like, and 2001 wasn't shot with those lenses. The only two movies that I really like from that era, as far other than just the fun of going to see them, would probably be Battle of the Bulge, which I actually think is like underrated as like one of the more enjoyable, even though it's not very historically correct, of those World War II big canvas movies. And I love It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. I just saw it recently again at LACMA. They just showed it. It was terrific. But, I'm not the biggest fan of stuff like, the Marlon Brando Mutiny and the Bounty, or Around the World in 80 Days, or any of the big musicals at that time that were shot with these big formats. Those aren't really my cup of tea. One of the things that I really love is that we did our effed up movies with this big, My Fair Lady, right, kind of format. All right, to me, doing the Hateful Eight in this kind of format, it would be like as if Ken Russell did The Devils, all right, in 70mm with an overture and a program and an intermission. and like that would have been awesome if Ken Russell did The Devils that way. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't.
And like his is like if Adele H, all right, we're done in this kind of War and Peace format.
Misusing tools is kind of fun sometimes too. Like here's what you're supposed to use it for. He said, I use it a different way. I mean, that's always fun. Yeah.
But to have film too, and you guys were big champions. I mean, we saw film. I interviewed Wong Kar-wai on Grandmaster, and he told a story about how he was running out of Fujifilm. They went out of business before he was done with his movie, and they had to go all over the place trying to find the last Fujifilm.
Yeah, right.
And Kodak was in the same situation, and you guys were very vocal, and Christopher Nolan and Scorsese.
People do not realize. Christopher Nolan, he's the Che Guevara in that.
He's the linchpin, really the
he pulled it all together.
I would say.
But people don't realize how close we came to losing film altogether last summer before last. It literally almost got to be the point where it was like, okay, the factory that makes it was just going to make about enough for the next 3 years, and then that was going to be it. And then Christopher Nolan kind of rallied the troops and some of the studios together, and by saving it, basically by kind of going to the studio heads and saying, look, if film dies, it's going to die on your watch.
Right.
Now, either that means something to you or it doesn't.
But I also think that it's far from over too. I mean, there's a little bit of a what do you call it?
No, it's a reprieve.
A reprieve.
No, it's a reprieve.
It's a reprieve, but it requires us blabbing our mouths off as much as we can, and hopefully that there's a generation behind us that wants to continue this and keep this alive, or any filmmakers that want to film in it, and at the very least making a certain amount of prints just to keep them for archival purposes or get them shown in a certain way. That's what 70mm too. There's sort of an advantage of, if these 70mm projectors and these sort of venues can be kept alive, I'm not opposed to 35mm blow-ups kind of going out. They look beautiful, they sound great, and there can be kind of this alternative kept alive that Quentin and Harvey have sort of gotten into the theaters. Like, Chris Nolan's around the corner with another film, he'll be able to show this. So it's about us continuing to fucking just keep banging the drum and making as much noise to keep Kodak in business.
Well, that was the situation when Chris was going through his stuff on Interstellar. He's like, Tarantino's right behind me. With the Hateful Eight, and they heard that,
Right.
and then Chris is right behind, and Chris is going to be behind me.
Sure. Right.
Yeah. So you have to keep it alive, and it's the filmmakers that are doing it. I mean,
yeah.
you guys are the lone voices in this wilderness.
Well, like I said, we never should have been cut out of the equation in the first place when it came to this film projection thing, you know, and that's their fault. All right, you know, but they slowly have recognized that, and you know, we'll see. Again, like, you know, it's a little weird to talk about all these formats when the play is the thing. Yeah. All right, you know. Having said that, though, you know, I literally, I don't know how the public's going to react, and it's actually kind of a really, it's a very exciting time, because I think we've put our best foot forward. I'm real proud of the movie, and I've seen some of the projection around that we've seen with the film, and it looks absolutely amazing, and it's a real experience. So I'm really looking forward for my fans to show up and see how it goes. But I literally do not know the outcome, and it's to me, it's not scary at all. It's just nothing but exciting. I literally am looking forward to see where we're sitting, 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, and it's great that you were able to lure Ennio Morricone back to doing a Western score for the first time in I don't know how long.
Yeah.
But
Well, the first time since, people keep saying Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. No, it was like a Terrence Hill movie he did called Genius, or it was done in like 73 or something like that. So it was like Genius and My Name is Nobody, I think, were his last official Western scores. And he said he would never do a Western again. And then he did my Western, and he actually kind of proved his point, all right? Because it's more of a horror film score kind of than a Western score for the most part. But that's actually ended up very appropriate for the movie. It's about encompassing dread and the violence that will fall.
oh yeah, actually I thought the score is beautiful in this picture.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's the first time he's been trying to get me to use an original score forever.
Yeah.
And finally,
Because you've used
broke down.
Morricone in many of your films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, a lot.
Just not written for them.
Yeah, well, I've never given, I've never actually wanted to give a composer that kind of power over my film at the last stage of the game. When I chose the music, well, then it's mine. It's my choice. And but it was something about this movie. I had a little voice whispered to me on this film, and no other. I've never had this voice before in any other film. In fact, I had the opposite voice, frankly. This voice said, there's something about this material. It deserves its own music. It deserves something more than a secondhand score. And I've never referred to my other movies as a secondhand score. I always, what if I use it better than the guy who did it before? It's mine. I'm buying the rights. I'm not ripping off anything. If I do it better, well, then I get it. He can use it again and maybe do it better than me. Well, we'll see. All right. Good luck. All right. But I didn't feel that this way. I actually felt this time that it was. It should be this should have its own music that would be original to it, that would be associated forever with the Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
And I listen, and I always listen to that voice. I always feel that that's your talent's way of trying to communicate with you. And so I listened to it, and we got together, and I had a very interesting conversation with Ennio the first time. So I go down to his. We'd met each other before at other things, but I go down to his apartment. It's this most beautiful apartment in Rome. And first step is translating it into Italian, the script. And so he read it, and his wife read it, his son read it. They all really liked it. His wife really, really liked it, which I think went a long way. And we got together to talk about it. And one of the things he said, he goes, well, I'm kind of curious about even why you're here. Because, approaching me to write original score, that's not what you do. What you do is you take other scores that have already existed, and then you use them to your own benefit and your own way, and you do a really good job with that, and people seem to like it, so why would you change? And I was like, well, frankly, I'm not even 100% sure if I want to change or not. And if this doesn't work out, I'll probably how I end up doing this one. But there is something about this one that we've needed to sit down and talk seriously about collaborating, and I think this is the one to have that conversation about. And then we just kept it about the script, kept talking about the script, and he mentioned that he had a theme, which I was very interested about the idea of this theme that's floating around in his head. And well, tell me about this theme. And he's known for like humming it out or dotting it out, you know. And you see him when he actually works with the orchestra. That's what he does. No, it needs to be da da da, or ba ba ba. And he gets very frustrated until the trombone people do it the right way. Or the oboe people do it the right way. But in this case, it was like, well, no, I see like a theme. It's driving. It's like the stagecoach. It's moving forward. It's moving forward, and it's moving through that snowy terrain, and the 6 horses are pulling it, and the wheels are turning, and it's just moving forward, and that would be the driving part of the theme. However, there's an ominous sound that umbrellas right on top of over it, that is just the suggestion of the violence that will ultimately come. And that sounded terrific. And at the time, it looked like he was only, because he had to work with Giuseppe Tornatore to do his next movie, and it looked like that was going to, he would only have a chance to do a theme. But the truth of the matter is, he sat down, I think that night after I left, and got inspired. And I ended up seeing him at the Donatello Awards the very next day, or the very next night. And he goes, Quentin, I'm going to give you more music than that. And so literally, like 7 minutes of music became 15 minutes of music, became 22 minutes of music, became something like 32 minutes of music by the time it was all over with.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Well, that's amazing. Well, that's a gift right there. Now that it's Christmas, I mean, to have another Ennio Morricone score on a Western. But it is Christmas, so do you guys have like a big wish other than that film lives forever?
No,
well, after that one, okay, well, let's think. World peace? Nah. Film.
You were saying before, like, you're not, this feeling of, I'm not sure what's going to happen tonight when it starts to play, but really properly tomorrow. But it got me kind of flashing back to experiences around Christmas time of going to films, because they do go hand in hand, I think, especially for people like us. And I think for a lot of people, that whether it's Christmas Eve or Christmas night, usually the day after, you're out and forced to see the films. I mean, I remember going to see Reds with my grandmother, and that was an intermission film. I mean, that was an experience, you know, and it was to be taken seriously, and I remember that feeling. And I was thinking about what you were saying, how are people going to, I don't know exactly how they're going to respond, but that Christmas feeling of sitting down and taking something serious and having it kind of attached to the end of the year, and how, I mean, I have so many films in my mind besides Reds. The list is long.
No, in particular, like Christmas and Thanksgiving. I mean, I always think of Star Trek IV, the one with the whales, all right, saying that Thanksgiving, all right, after turkey.
Right. I remember when The Godfather came out on Christmas, that Godfather 3 that they brought out, that was sort of this big deal. Like, Godfather 3, we're going Christmas, and, you know. I mean, the list is so long, I'm blanking out, honestly. But it's...
And Jews, all right, go out and have Chinese food and go see the new Spielberg movie.
Oh,
Christmas.
Yeah. It's a great time to see movies, and great time to have movies like this and like yours. And I can't wait to see your next one, Paul.
I want to say one thing too, just to pay Quentin a compliment. As a fellow director, it is a lot harder to be in one room directing that many people than do just about anything else, because there's absolutely nowhere else to go. You are stuck with yourself and your script, and to pull off that is a degree of difficulty that I think other directors, and I think most people feel and they see, but as another director, when you see that thing pulled off within a room, the degree of difficulty is really high, at least in terms of how I see it. And it's one of the things he's done in this film that I kind of respect and see the most, that kind of shines through as an amazing thing he's done.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Quentin, you've had 3 Best Picture nominations, Pulp Fiction, Django Unchained, and Inglourious Bastards. Where does Hateful Eight, in your mind, fit into that equation with those films that have gotten that ultimate kind of accolade?
Well, I think 3 is one of those pesky odd numbers that if we made it 4 with this one, I would feel more secure because I'd have that right kind of balance, you know. 2 for 2 would be a nice kind of way to do it, looking at it. You know, I would feel better about it, myself. But that's just me. I'm prejudiced in that way. But at the same time, it's just it's that kind of stuff is just to me very, very exciting. It's always fun to, when you're lucky enough to get nominated, even to have your film make it the top 10 list, or and to be invited to that kind of party and that kind of festivities, and you get to hobnob with all the other people who did significant work this year. And I've met people during this Oscar kind of thing that we've been. Stayed friends for the next 8 years, and always happy to see each other, and always happy to have another conversations and see their movies, and we screen movies for each other back and forth. It's just a real fun experience.
It's cool. Well, Paul Thomas Anderson and Quentin Tarantino, thanks for spending a little Christmas time with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for this, man. This is
Merry
really
Christmas,
fun, man.
Pete.
Merry Christmas. Thanks.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Happy Christmas Eve.